Unless you've been living under a rock for the last 2 weeks, you'll have read about the new Nokia Windows phones launched at Nokia World, the Lumia 800 and 710. Microsoft is funding massive, and I mean massive, publicity campaigns for the 800. It's a nice device too, with a unibody, polycarbonate shell, 3.7-inch AMOLED screen with CBD, and a decent f2.2 camera. There are the usual Windows Phone limitations though. You'll remember my rant from Phone Show 152. 16GB of built-in memory should keep most people happy though. The 710 is a more standard plastic frame version with just 8GB of mass memory, no AMOLED, and a lower spec camera. Nice to have the two Nokias out in the open though, and I'll have an official Phone Show assessment of the 800 very shortly. Back in the superphone race, the Android-powered HTC Rezound has specs that are simply crazy. 4.3-inch display at full 720p resolution for an insane pixel density, LTE connectivity, Wi-Fi, SRS, WOW, HD, surround sound, whatever the heck that is, 8-megapixel rear camera with f2.2, 28mm wide-angle lens, 1080p video recording, 1.5 GHz dual-core processor, 16GB of internal memory, plus 16GB micro SD card pre-installed, and a 1620 mAh battery. Wow, just wow. I bet I'll find something to complain about though, you know me. I haven't done a really good head-to-head for ages here on the Phone Show, but I thought it especially appropriate since the two devices here are not only virtually physically identical, they're also great examples of how the smartphone world is edging into the world of traditional phones. You'll remember I renamed the Smartphone Show in the first place so that I could widen my net to include smaller and cheaper devices. Now, neither of these are budget phones, far from it, but they're also a world away from the enormous superphones much loved by the uber geeks. We have the Sony Ericsson Xperia Ray here and the Nokia 700, both very new and very small. Android 2.3.3 against Symbian Bell. Sweden and Japan against Finland. However you want to pitch this, it's a surprisingly close battle. Even the price, around £300 SIM-free, is the same. It would be great if one of these phones was plastic rubbish, but neither fits the description. It's a dead heat again. Both employ a mix of metal and plastic. Both are tremendously solid and rugged. Both slip perfectly into almost any pocket. Both have a decent loudspeaker and a battery to keep them going for a full day or two. The key difference here is the displays. The Nokia 700 is lower resolution and smaller at 3.1 inches, not the 3.2 in the specs. I measured it. But it is AMOLED and has clear black display polarizers and looks stunning as long as your eyesight is decent. Whereas the Ray has a larger 3.3-inch full WVGA display, but its front-lit transflective LCD and the colours just aren't as impressive. Swings and roundabouts then. And both technologies fare well outdoors, and so both devices work well as a go-anywhere phone. As I say, a draw overall. For practical purposes, I can't split the two here either. Both Android on the Ray and Symbian Bell on the 700 are at the point where everything works as fast as you'd expect. I tested everything, even pitching the web browsers against each other, and they kept a level pegging. The Ray has just a micro SD card, 4GB unit comes in the box, and it's up to you to put in something larger, while the 700 has an initially empty card slot plus 2GB of mass memory, but it's not enough to make a huge difference. But watch this, I've found a differentiating factor. Despite the identical tiny sizes, Sony Ericsson has worked miracles in the Ray's camera. It's 8-megapixel stills are really not bad at all. We're not talking Galaxy S2 quality, let alone N8 territory, but in most cases I was pleasantly surprised for shots taken in good light. In contrast, the Nokia 700's camera is the most disappointing unit from the Finns that I've tested for ages. Yes, it's EDOF, and that's probably a black mark against it in most people's eyes, but more than that, its 5 megapixels are just, well, not very well done. Somebody, somewhere, has skimped on the quality front. There's not as much detail or colour here as there should be. I've seen some excellent EDOF cameras, witness the E7 filming this and the C7 I've got here. Very nice. Oh, by the way, ignore the LED on the Ray's back. It's a video light. You can leave it turned on if you want while photographing. Let's try that. But you'll really, really annoy the people you're trying to photograph. Just imagine the scene later on reviewing your photographs. Oh, look, here's a snap of Mike looking cheesed off. Oh, and there's one of Mary squinting. And, oh, look, here's one of Dan shielding his eyes. Well, you get the idea. But then there's video capture. Take a look at this. Test video on the Xperia Ray compared to Exactly the same scene shot on the Nokia 700. The Ray's 720p capture was okay, a bit washed out though and no focusing of any kind, adequate. But the 700's output, as you saw, is EDOF crisp and demonstrably superior. So each device wins one of the camera function tests, and again it's a draw. Oh, this is hopeless. Mind you, now we get down to the rub of the matter, your own personal mobile OS and application preferences. And seemingly to make my job impossible, Nokia has tailored Symbian Bell to look and behave as much like Android as possible. Look, here's the swipe down notification screen. Here are the widgetized home screens. Here are the applications, now flattened into one huge list, though you can at least toggle custom and alphabetic order, thankfully. Mind you, Sony Ericsson has taken the opposite step of trying to customize Android by putting in iPhone-like side-scrolling application lists. So all's fair in love and war, I guess. The application set built into each phone is fairly similar right down to Office file readers. Nokia Maps on the 700 is a real highlight, but then so is the equally critical Gmail client on Android in the Ray. Both phones and OSs have social network support built in, though I'd give the edge to the Facebook integration in the Ray. Once it's set up, it works pretty well, though the split between updates in the Timescape widget and the Facebook app and the photo album browsing contacts takes a little getting used to. This is the area, of course, where I've been spoilt rotten by using Windows Phone Mango-powered devices. There are certainly more compatible third-party 2011 class applications for Android, and this may well swing the balance for some people. If you've used Symbian before, then you'll find the 700, well, still fairly familiar. It's why I preferred the 700 if I really had to choose between the two devices and the two OSs. A cautious win for the Ray, though, in this category, purely because of the excellent Google and Facebook integration and the possibility to add Evernote and many other cloud services in. But before declaring the Xperia Ray winning by a nose, it should be noted, here we go, that a Symbian Bell also includes full NFC support, near-field communications. That's right. You can tap for info, tap to share media, tap to pair to NFC-enabled accessories, and so on. It's very cool. And full NFC functions, they do rather seem to be Symbian only at the moment. I mean, full functions, so that must be galling for some. Giving the 700 a vital last furlong boost, and it's a photo finish. It's a tie. I just can't call this one. Both are excellent little smartphones, and even just good introduction to smartphones for the less geeky. But you decide for yourself. There are differences in screen tech, in camera functions, in the OS used. Maybe this race isn't quite as tight in your own eyes. Comments welcome.